The announcement of Burkina Faso constructing its largest power plant in history has become more than just a national achievement. It is a development that reverberates across continents, unsettling the entrenched structures of global influence, and in particular, sending ripples of unease into the political corridors of Washington. Reports of Donald Trump's concern, some describe it as panic, over the scale of this project underline just how symbolic and strategic this moment is. It is not only a story of infrastructure and electricity, it is one of sovereignty, energy independence, and Africa's place in the geopolitical order. To understand the gravity of what is unfolding, one must first appreciate the context of Burkina Faso's history, the challenges it has faced in energy access, and the message it now sends to the wider world by embarking on a project of this magnitude. For decades, Burkina Faso, like many nations in West Africa, has struggled with electricity shortages. A growing population, expanding cities, and an evolving industrial base have all put tremendous strain on a fragile and insufficient grid. Rural communities remain underserved, often relying on kerosene lamps, diesel generators, or simply going without consistent power. The consequences have been far-reaching: economic stagnation, limited educational opportunities, and persistent healthcare challenges. Yet, with every difficulty has come determination, and in the last several years, Burkina Faso has embarked on a mission to redefine itself. The construction of its largest power plant is the pinnacle of this ambition, a sign to its own people and to the world that Burkina Faso will no longer accept being left in the margins of development. The plant itself is reported to be capable of producing more electricity than all of Burkina Faso's existing facilities combined. While the exact specifications vary in different reports, the consensus is clear. This will be a state-of-the-art facility incorporating a hybrid approach that includes conventional generation along with renewable components such as solar integration and potential regional energy export capability. For a landlocked nation historically dependent on imported energy from neighboring countries, this project is nothing short of revolutionary. By building the largest power plant in its history, Burkina Faso sends a message that self-reliance is possible, that African nations can drive their own destinies, and that energy security can serve as the foundation for economic independence. But why, one might ask, does such a project cause alarm in the United States, particularly in the political world of Trump? The answer lies in the complex and often unspoken dynamics of global influence. Africa's dependence on Western financial institutions, foreign aid, and energy partnerships has historically been leveraged to maintain a certain balance of power. When a nation such as Burkina Faso breaks away from this dependency, it challenges the very levers that Washington and its allies have long relied on to exert soft and sometimes hard influence. Trump, who has consistently expressed a transactional approach to international relations, recognizes the potential consequences. If Burkina Faso achieves this level of energy independence, it reduces U.S. leverage not just in Burkina Faso but across the region. Energy is power in both the literal and figurative sense. Moreover, the geopolitical undertones of this project cannot be ignored. There are strong indications that Burkina Faso has not turned to traditional Western lenders or corporations to spearhead this project. Instead, it has sought partnerships with non-Western actors, China, Russia, and Gulf states, all of whom are eager to expand their presence in Africa. This shift threatens Washington's strategic interests. Trump, whose rhetoric often emphasized America first, knows that a reconfiguration of African alliances toward Beijing or Moscow undermines U.S. access to markets, resources, and influence. In this light, the largest power plant in Burkina Faso is not just about lights and electricity. It is a battlefield of global competition. Burkina Faso's leadership has been deliberate in framing this project as a symbol of sovereignty. For years, President Ibrahim Traoré has articulated a vision of independence, rejecting the paternalism of Western partners while advocating for African self-sufficiency. His administration has made energy security a cornerstone of this vision, arguing that no nation can claim independence if it cannot power its schools, hospitals, factories, and homes. The largest power plant, therefore, is more than an engineering feat. It is a political statement. It tells the world that Burkina Faso is charting a new course, and it invites other African nations to do the same. The implications for Burkina Faso's economy are profound. With reliable energy supply, industrial growth becomes possible. Manufacturing plants that once avoided Burkina Faso because of unreliable electricity can now reconsider. Local entrepreneurs who depended on expensive generators to power their businesses can expand their operations. Schools will be able to run digital classrooms. Hospitals can operate life-saving equipment without fear of power cuts. And rural electrification can lift communities out of energy poverty. Economic analysts suggest that such a project could increase Burkina Faso's GDP growth rate by several percentage points, ushering in a new era of prosperity. For the Burkinabe people, this represents not just progress, but dignity, the ability to control their own destiny rather than being at the mercy of external forces. Trump's concern, then, is rooted not only in geopolitics, but also in economics. U.S. corporations, particularly in the energy and infrastructure sectors, have long looked at Africa as a frontier for investment. However, with projects like Burkina Faso's largest power plant being awarded to non-U.S. partners, American companies are being sidelined. This translates into lost contracts, diminished influence, and reduced economic returns. Trump, who has often prided himself on being a businessman president, sees in this development a direct challenge to U.S. business interests abroad. The panic, as some describe it, is therefore not irrational but grounded in the recognition that America is losing ground in a competition it once dominated. The symbolism of the plant also matters. In global politics, symbols are powerful. A massive power plant rising in Ouagadougou or its surrounding regions becomes a visual representation of progress, determination, and independence. For African nations that have long battled narratives of dependency and underdevelopment, this project becomes a source of inspiration. Leaders from Mali, Niger, Ghana, and beyond will look to Burkina Faso's example and consider how they too might break free from the cycle of reliance. The West, particularly the U.S. and Europe, fears this domino effect. If Burkina Faso can do it, why not others? And if others follow, what does that mean for Western influence on the continent? Beyond symbolism, there is also the question of energy export. A power plant of this scale will likely produce surplus electricity, which Burkina Faso can sell to neighboring countries. This not only generates revenue, but also positions Burkina Faso as an energy hub in West Africa. For a country that has often been overshadowed by larger regional players such as Nigeria or Ghana, this is a chance to step into a leadership role. Trump and others in Washington know that energy hubs become political hubs. The nation that provides electricity to its neighbors wields significant leverage. If Burkina Faso achieves this, it will alter the balance of power in West Africa in ways that diminish Western bargaining power. The financing of the project is another crucial dimension. Reports suggest that Burkina Faso has relied on a combination of state funds, non-Western loans, and public-private partnerships that bypass traditional Western financial institutions such as the IMF or World Bank. This represents a deliberate move away from the conditional loans and austerity measures that have often come with Western funding. Instead, Burkina Faso is embracing a model that prioritizes national interest over external dictates. For Trump and others, this is a red flag. It indicates that African nations are no longer willing to play by the old rules and that the grip of institutions shaped by Western interests is loosening. Burkina Faso's population has responded with enthusiasm and pride. Reports from the ground indicate a surge in national unity and optimism. Citizens see the power plant not just as a source of electricity, but as a tangible sign that their leaders are delivering on promises of progress. Public support for the government has strengthened, and the sense of hope is palpable. In a country that has endured political instability and security challenges, this project provides a unifying vision. Trump, ever attuned to the politics of perception, understands that such national unity can bolster leaders like Traore and make them less susceptible to external pressure. There is also a broader cultural shift underway. The success of the project is feeding into a narrative of African Renaissance, one in which the continent takes control of its destiny and rejects the old hierarchies of global power. Intellectuals, artists, and activists across Africa are celebrating Burkina Faso's achievement as part of a wider movement toward independence and dignity. This cultural energy is as significant as the material benefits of the power plant. For Trump and others, it represents a challenge to the soft power of the West. If Africans begin to see themselves not as dependent, but as innovators and leaders, the entire dynamic of Africa-West relations will change. In examining Trump's reaction, one must also consider the domestic political context in the U.S. Trump has built much of his political identity on projecting strength and control. The idea that a small, landlocked African nation could defy U.S. expectations and chart its own course challenges this image. It undermines the narrative that America remains the uncontested global leader. Political opponents within the U.S. can seize upon such developments to argue that, under Trump, America is losing influence. This adds a layer of personal political anxiety to his broader geopolitical concerns. The long-term implications of Burkina Faso's largest power plant are still unfolding. What is certain is that it marks a turning point not only for Burkina Faso, but for Africa as a whole. It signals a move toward independence, sovereignty, and a rebalancing of global power dynamics. For Trump, the panic is real because the stakes are high. Energy independence in Burkina Faso is not just about one nation's progress. It is about the unraveling of a system of influence that has long served U.S. interests. The plant is a symbol of a changing world, one in which Africa is no longer content to play a subordinate role, but is ready to stand tall on the global stage. As the turbines begin to spin and the lights across Burkina Faso brighten, the reverberations will continue to be felt far beyond its borders. Europe will take note, Asia will see opportunity, and Africa will find inspiration. In Washington, Trump's unease will be a reminder that the old order is shifting and that power, like energy, cannot be hoarded forever. It flows to those who have the courage to generate it, and in this moment, Burkina Faso has shown the world what courage looks like.